This is another success story interview. In this interview, I talked to Graham, who reached just about $1,500 a month. Now, he's a 5-figure niche site student, so it was pretty cool to catch up with him. I also had the pleasure of meeting Graham a few weeks back, so we'll insert a little intro here. And before we get started, I want to sort of warn you that the audio and video quality suffered quite a bit through the process. So Graham was very patient working with me, and hopefully you'll be patient too. Now, I will provide a transcript as well, so check the link in the description in case you want to dig a little deeper and read through the interview. So sorry about the audio quality and the video quality. I'm not sure what happened. I think it could be some connection issues. But anyway, without further ado, let's go over to the interview. What's up? I'm actually on location with Graham here. We happen to be sort of close by, so I came by to say hello. How are you doing today?
Hello there, Mr. Cunnington. It's nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, and like not that many people are in the Bozeman area, so when he was going to be close by, I thought, hey, we should do something. So we're hanging out. We had a couple beers earlier. Beautiful weather here, sort of near the Grand Teton National Park, and we're going to show you an interview in a second, and we're going to go over 3 main points. We'll have to massage this and figure out how we're going to say it. But there are 3 really cool things that we're going to talk about in the interview. So first, let's talk about revenue. So in the last month, like, how'd you do?
So I just cracked the 4-figure mark like last month.
All right.
I did about 1,200, and it looks like I should do about 1,200 this month again.
Cool. And then how about traffic? What are you looking at for traffic?
Traffic, I'm averaging about, I would say, 1,400 a day, something like that.
It's a lot of traffic. Sweet. And I guess one of the other big points that I know, just we've been chatting about internet marketing for like a lot of hours now, but basically, I mean, you really have like some persistence that a lot of people like don't have. So it's interesting because when you first started working with me, your site was a little like the niche was
bad.
Yeah, it was not ideal. However, you're so stubborn that you stuck with it. And I took a look and I gave the blessing, and I'm like, all right, I think you can do it. And you persevered, and it's working out. Now we got a full interview. We're going to get into the details, but I thought we could do like a live intro since we're actually standing here next to each other. So you ready to go to the interview?
Let's do it.
All right. Hey, it's Doug here. I'm sitting with my friend Graham. How are you doing today?
Hey, Dougie, I'm phenomenal. How are you?
Doing well. It's summertime here in Bozeman, so I look shiny. It's actually sweat. It's warm in this room, and I had to turn the AC off while we're recording. So how is it where you're at? Where are you located, by the way?
I'm in Boston, so it's nice. I'm sure the listeners really want to hear about the weather patterns in my life, but it was really hot and now it's cooled down. So the whole city like gets really happy when it's nice out because the winters are so brutal.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Totally.
It's beautiful.
All right. You're right. Nobody wants to hear about the weather. Let's get into the results, Graham. Totally right. So you're a student of 5-figure niche site. You enrolled like last summer, so we're coming up on 1 year. Can you tell us about revenue and traffic on your site?
Yeah, I was June 2017, and then I had a site. My main site was live for about probably 3 or 4 months before I found you and found all your great content. I like to preface that because my results have been pretty good, but I also have had a little bit more time, and I don't want to be like unfair or anything, if that makes sense. But anyways, revenue, I did about $1,450 last month, and that was with about 45,000 people. And this month, July 2018, I'm hoping to do 16 to 1,700. So
excellent.
And about 50,000-ish people. So it's growing month after month.
Very cool. Congratulations, by the way. It's an awesome amount of revenue and a ton of traffic. Really cool. I know what your site is because, when you joined up, I took a look and I was like, this is a kind of a rough niche, right? I don't know if you should move forward with it, but after we talked, we're like, let's see what you can do. And how did you persevere knowing that it wasn't, you know, you're not personally interested in it? It seemed to be kind of a weird one. And yeah, just tell us how you pushed through.
That's a very generous retelling, my friend. How I remember it is you said, like, for all the listeners out there, like, Doug is the nicest guy. So he was like, I don't know about this. Like, the it's a weird niche. The product price is really low. There's some weird, like, authority sites. So you pretty much said, like, don't do it. And I essentially said, I'm stubborn. So I kind of, how did I do it, man? Was perseverance. I guess in retrospect, I should have just, like, not been so stubborn, and I guess probably spent all the time that I've worked on it, like, following the course more and, starting a new site. But I've made it work, I
Right. Well, and I
suppose.
mean, I think that's a good example too, where, you know, it looks like maybe it's not a great one even to an expert. I would call myself an expert. So even
As
for
would
some
I.
people, I would say like, you know, maybe somewhere else, but you found like you applied the lessons from the course and made it work and like exceeded my expectations and probably your own too, right? Would you have imagined a year ago that we would be doing a success story on you after you made like $1,500?
Probably not on this first site, but again, I think part of it's just like a temperament thing. Like, I would like to say that I work really hard and like to sink my teeth into things, but I think the reality is I'm, like, stubborn and maybe slightly obsessive
Sure.
about this stuff. So, like, I kind of had to make it work. I don't know. I think I'm a good example that, like, I'm not. Sometimes you'll go, like, on YouTube or on other authority sites, not to throw shade, and you'll hear these stories about people who, it's like, oh, I made 50K in affiliate marketing my first year. I'm already doing 5K a month or 4K a month or whatever. Like, I'm not one of those examples. Like, I'm doing great and I'm super grateful for all the success, but, like, I think, like, if I can do this, anyone can do it, and anyone can do it in a bad niche. It doesn't
Right.
mean you should, but, like, as long as you're moving forward, you can't fail. And I say that only because, like, and you've echoed this in your lovely, lovely content. Like, most people fail in the beginning, right? They, like, I don't know, they never even finish the course, or they register the site and then, hi, Georgie. Or they put out 4 articles and they don't see anything and they quit. Like, just get through that hump and, like, it will come. Just keep moving forward.
Indeed. Yeah. And I think, I mean, that's a perfect way to put it. Now, I'll pull us back on track a little bit because Georgie distracted me for a second, but I'll recap the results really quickly. So you're making about $1,500 a month currently. You've been growing it, and, you know, the site's roughly like 15, 16 months old, something like that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
excellent. Now we'll dig into the details, some of your strategies and stuff like that. Before we do, just curious about like your background, education, stuff like that.
Background education. Who is Graham? I graduated from school here in Boston with a degree in information systems. So I was always kind of tech, business oriented. I suppose I come from a long line of salesmen, so I guess this is kind of sales,
Yeah.
right? I was working in real estate for a while, and then I found this, and honestly, I just kind of fell in love with affiliate marketing. I don't know what it is. It's something about watching the numbers tick up. It's just like, I think it's the coolest thing in the world.
It's pretty fun. And, you know, from the intro, people know that you and I hung out for a little bit because we were sort of in the same region. It's not often when someone comes anywhere close to Bozeman, Montana. So we hung out some. I was going to say, I had to give you some advice on not being so obsessive on checking your stats, but it's totally natural when you're just getting started. So I hear you on like just liking the affiliate marketing model because it's like you control it at that point, like versus having to work for a company, which I did for a long time. All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts of your site. So, like from a content standpoint, how did you approach it sort of like before you started working with me and then afterwards, and what's your current approach with content?
When I started, it was all just really bad, right? And I had no system, and I was just like throwing things out there, and I had some kind of guidelines. I was shooting for 1,000 word articles or whatever, but right, you're like a newbie and you don't know what you're doing, and it was just all bad, right? So I think before I stumbled across your content, which like really was the game changer for me, and I found a way to like systematize it and all that stuff. I had like 2 sales, and I made my first dollar, and I was just hooked, right? I knew I wasn't doing things like optimally, but I knew that like this dream is real and you can do it. So I got my first few sales, and then I was really excited, and then actually Amazon rejected my first application, which was a real gut punch. It turns out I was just, the site was just not good. It looked kind of spammy, and I was pulling the images wrong. Anyways, found your stuff, learned about the KGR. The KGR is really like the bread and butter for everything I do. Like that's probably been the most important thing in the development of my life as an affiliate marketer. I applied everything that you said in the course.
Right.
you know,
The framework, it works. Yeah. Okay.
It works.
So you were writing like about 1,000 words per post or something like that. How long's your content now, by the way?
I'm up to about 70 posts now, and at around probably the 45, 50 post mark, I was getting burned out, right? Because it's hard, right? It's hard to write 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 words every day. Usually what I do, I have a couple writers, and I'll find the keywords and I'll send them the stuff, and then usually what they send back to me is anywhere from 80 to 90% complete. So like, and that's fine for me. I can spend like an hour or two, like adding more products or adding stock images or adding the links,
Sure.
all that stuff. And I'm really happy with that system, because what I do best, I feel like, is find the keywords, find the opportunities, right? And then I let these lovely writers like kind of do the grunt work, and I'm happy because like I get to do what I love, and they're happy because I'm paying them a fair wage.
Very good. And I've kind of find that too, because I'm a slow writer and typer and stuff, so it's much better for like people that are qualified to write to do that. And then I could edit okay, but yeah, cool. And where'd you find the writers?
It was just on Upwork. I can't remember. I think I got this advice from the course, was to just like I hired like 5, and I can't remember the exact words, the exact numbers, but I sent out like, I hired 5, and then like 2 were really bad, and 1 just like plagiarized another article, and then 2 were like pretty good. And then like over time, they adapt to kind of your style and your wants and your needs. And so now I have like 2 really like great writers who I'm really happy with. But for the newbies out there, like definitely stick at it, because the first time I hired a writer, it just went like horribly, and I was like, all right, I'm never doing this again. It's really good, and like anything else, it takes time to really like optimize the system.
Yeah, it's a skill for sure. And I think, that is from the course. Like you're probably going to have to hire about twice as many people as you need, because some people are bad. I mean, you may get lucky and 80% of them are going to be good, but you also may end up on the other end where only like 1 out of 5 is good. But yeah, it's going to be a little rocky at first, for sure.
Yeah. And I always tell people, like, keep in mind, it's an investment. Like people are really adverse. Like they really don't want to spend the money sometimes. And I'm like, I'm living proof that like with my not great niche, like the money comes back, and it comes back over time. I think I pay my writers like $20-$25 an article, something like that.
Let's change gears and talk about keyword research. So you mentioned that the keyword golden ratio has been really helpful for you. So you can talk about that a little. And then also like just if you had trouble at the beginning finding the keyword.
Oh, absolutely. I have a tendency to like get meta and rant. So I apologize. But like any other like part of this, like it's the hardest at the beginning, right? So in the beginning, I distinctly remember seeing, I think, your original video on the KGR. And I remember being like, I don't want to do all this work. And then I like tried doing it, and I like, for those of you who are familiar with the KGR, anything above like 0.25 ish is like hard to compete, right? Or slightly more difficult to compete. And then anything over like 1 is like really hard to compete. I was finding like 3s and 4s and 5s, like no, like terrible keywords, right? But eventually over time, you just get better at doing it, and you get better at kind of like feeling out like, oh, this could be a good part of this niche. This could be a good informational guide. And then you find them.
And I think, I mean, that's a great point. Like anything that you're just starting out at and then you see an expert do it, it looks impossible, right? I mean, you could pick like any example, I don't know, like juggling or playing basketball or anything like that. The first time you go out on the court or you're trying to juggle, I don't know why I picked those examples, by the way. I don't know. They have to do with balls. I think that's why. So the thing is, it looks impossible. But once you spend some time, like you can really get better at it. So nowadays, Graham, right? Like you can find KGR terms much faster, right?
Yeah. It feels really good because it's like you're like, oh, this is another opportunity. I don't know. When I'm doing keyword research, you'll just go on this little run where you find 20 of them, and you're like, awesome. So
right.
stay with it.
And do you have any tips on for like, down in the weeds, like technically, do you have any tips on like how people can find them a little more easily?
Definitely download Keywords Everywhere. For those of you who aren't familiar, it gives you it's this like browser extension that gives you an estimate for local monthly search volume. And that makes it like really easy to just like everywhere you go on the internet when you're doing your daily life, you can like just kind of start to get a feel for things, and you can find them much more easily, I suppose.
Nice. Yeah, I use Keywords Everywhere as well. And it's a great tool and it's free. So we'll definitely link it up. All right, so moving on to like link building. So this is one of the things that people hate doing, by the way. So have you done link building? I don't even know.
This is like the area where I am most deficient. I have done some kind of basic blog commenting and stuff like that, but like no real outreach or anything substantial like that. And I know I should.
Cool. Well, I mean, the thing is, a lot of people don't like link building. So there's so many of these keyword golden ratio stories where it's basically, I just published some content that was pretty good, followed the KGR, didn't have to do link building. That's great. I mean, if you do that, fantastic. Now, if you can, manage to build some links, I mean, I usually see things get better, but I mean, if you could do it without building links, I mean, more power to you, of course.
It's the kind of thing where like the barriers to entry for this are so low that like, if you're willing to take the time to like reach out to people like in organizations and all that sort of stuff, because it's 99.9% of your competition is never, ever going to do any of that stuff. And it's just one more way to kind of moat yourself off from your competition. Do as I say, not as I do, I guess.
Right. And I think, I mean, you made a really, like the whole like point is the barrier to entry, you're right, is super low. Like you can start a site and buy like a premium theme and get a year of hosting and probably a tool or two for like $200, right? Really low amount of like investment. And then if you're willing to say, look up keyword golden ratio terms, that seems hard to do, right? It takes a little while to do it. And then you're willing to, do some outreach where most people are not going to go to LinkedIn, find people that will interact with you and potentially like promote your site, let you do a guest post, link to your site, whatever, right? Most people are not going to do like any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really good point on that. And that's a good process that you described too, where you're like, go to LinkedIn, check organizations, like reach out to them in a channel that is not crowded. Like, I mean, I get, and you probably do too, I get like 2-3 emails per day asking for guest posts. Most of them just get deleted now because there's just so much garbage. But on LinkedIn, I mean, no one's reaching out to me on LinkedIn at all. No one reach out to me on LinkedIn. but anyway, yeah. Good point. Good point there. So let's talk about mistakes. All right. So we want to learn from your mistakes. You made a couple at least along the way, maybe more. So what can you share with us?
Well, the first big mistake was like picking a terrible niche and then picking a terrible domain name, like a not very brandable domain name. So I would say, like, rule of thumb, just make sure it's not an awful domain name. Like, make sure it's not something where people are going to go like, what?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I know Graham's domain name, and I'm just imagining like if he had like hats and T-shirts and stuff. You're like, oh, I mean, I can't say it, but it would be pretty funny to see that.
It would be no good.
Graham is super patient. We've had many technical issues, probably on my side. I made him switch laptops, made him do all sorts of stuff. We're coming back to talk about mistakes. So Graham was just saying that the domain name, he made a poor decision at the beginning before he started with five-figure niche site. So that would be something to tweak, but it didn't hold you back. It didn't hold you back. And that's a good lesson there. So what are some other mistakes that, you've learned along the way you could share with the audience?
I would say one of the big ones, like in the beginning, when you're new, you're always super focused on things like what color should my button be, and like what's the best theme to optimize conversions, all that stuff. And like those matter, but like not really. There's like the old phrase like content is king. If I could go back in time and like redirect all that time and energy I wasted worrying about the color of my buttons, I'd have like 50 more posts and a lot more money coming through every month. So just like focus, get everything like done is better than perfect. So like make sure it's passable, it's fine. And then just like the job is the content, the money maker is the content and link building and all that stuff. But
sure,
the summation is, don't spend time on things that don't really matter. Focus on the stuff that'll make you money.
Indeed. Yeah. And, I hear that often where it's like, just get something out that's good enough. You can adjust along the way. And your site's a classic example of that because the domain name isn't great, but it's good enough. And
it's no good.
When I first saw your site, it looked a little spammy, but it was good enough. And, you may have tweaked a couple things and eventually you honed in on the most important parts. And that is the most important thing. All right. Very cool. Any other mistakes that you want to share?
I know I harp on this all the time, but the other thing is like people expect this to be quick and easy money. And in reality, it takes a lot of time and hard work and patience. So I guess the big mistake I made was like expecting fast results and like not enjoying kind of the journey, not to make it all hippy dippy, but like set reasonable goals that you can accomplish and then feel good about it, right? Like, all right, I want to put out 10 posts this month or whatever, 5 posts. All right, I want to make $50 on this new site within 6 months. Okay. That's doable. People like set these incredibly high goals. Like I want to make 10K a month in 6 months. And then they never start because it's not, that would require so much work that it's just not feasible.
So this success of your site is impressive given, all the hard work and time you've put in. How has it impacted your life?
It's been tremendous. It's given me so much more kind of like just time. I do this from home. I don't have to commute. I don't have to change into a suit. I can decide to go to the gym during the middle of the day when it's not busy because that's what I want to do. I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like Doug Cunnington has changed my life and this stuff works and it's incredible. So literally all the changes have been good. I will say it can be isolating at times, but like that's a super small price to pay, and like you just, I don't know, you call up your buddies or you Skype with your friend Doug or whatever.
Right on. Yeah, thanks for saying that. Really appreciate it, of course. And for people that are, I mean, you've given, bits and pieces of advice for new people, but for some person who maybe they just started their site or maybe they're looking to start their site, what advice would you give them to help replicate what you've done?
This might be boring, but it's really the same advice. It's just like keep working hard, focus on things that matter, and be patient. It takes time. It'll take less time the more you learn and, refine your skills, but it takes time. I'm sure you can attest to this, and I'm sure your students and listeners can. When you first start doing research for certain keywords or for a certain niche or whatever, you see I saw dozens and dozens and dozens of just dead sites, right? Sites that have 10 posts, 15 posts. They were ranking, they were ranking for what I was searching for, but people just went, they just expected too much too quickly. And if they instead were slow and steady, they could be making, well into 4 or even 5 figures.
Yeah.
Now.
For sure. All right. Good advice. And I agree on all points. Now, one last question. Depending on when people are going to watch this, they may or may not be able to enroll in 5-Figure Niche Site, but enrollment opens soon, right? Enrollment is probably coming up soon from when we're recording this. I recently received an email. Someone was like, hey, who would pay you, Doug, $2,000 to buy a course? I thought you were a genuine guy, but I see I'm wrong. And I was like, hold on. The price of a course does not make one genuine or not. The person, by the way, we had a good interaction, but why would you pay, $2,000 for a course where maybe you could learn that stuff for free on YouTube or whatever? So how did you make that decision?
In the past, I took another course, and I won't mention the name of the marketer or anything like that, but it really wasn't good, and it, kind of led me to create this crappy site, and I felt burnt by it, absolutely, and I'm sure many people have been burned by it. I stumbled across your content, you have such a rich amount of great free content. And I emailed you, and you seemed like not a snake oil salesman. And I was able to implement some of your ideas, and I started seeing success almost immediately, within a month or so. So I knew that it was, or at least I had the gut feeling that it was legit. I purchased the course. We're friends now, but I don't know. I'm not just out here shilling your stuff. It's phenomenal. It changed my life. And the reason why I would say it's worth it to be a 5-Figure Niche Site student is, yes, you can find a lot of the information online for free. There's no doubt about that. And you've always been upfront and honest about it. The thing is, though, many people who want to start on this journey don't have hundreds of hours to digest all this just scattered information throughout the internet, and they can't tell, there's a lot of stuff out there that's not good advice, and in the beginning, you can't tell what's good and what's not, what's going to harm you, what's going to set you up for success. By enrolling in 5-Figure Niche Site, you're essentially getting the blueprints to success, right? I don't know. It was totally worth it for me. If you're not going to buy the course, but you still love what Doug is teaching you, then be a nice person and use his affiliate links, because I know him and he spends hours and hours and hours just helping people without any sort of monetary return from it. So
thanks.
I wish I used your hosting affiliate links and your SEO affiliate links, but
come on, man, you got to use the links. All right. Well, cool. I'm glad you said that stuff. And when you look at, the course isn't for everyone, right? Some people just don't like me. All right. So that's fair too. And they like other people instead. When you look at, the actual ROI from you bought the course and in the last 2 months, you've already made more than the course cost. And then you have an asset worth potentially, 20, 35,000 bucks, something like that. Right. That works. So, obviously you put in a ton of time. I'm not taking into account your time and the hard work and all that. But from a monetary standpoint, it's if it's the right person at the right time, the course could be a great investment. And I personally have bought courses that were, I didn't buy any courses for first 3 years I was doing any of this stuff. But in the last couple years, I bought courses that were like, $1,000 to $4,000 and 100% like made their money back. You get access to ask questions to experts, which is part of like one of the big values is you can send me an email and I'll answer your question, or potentially talk to you and help you through an issue or whatever. So anyway, we'll get off that soapbox. All right. So thanks, Graham, for taking the time to talk to me and the Niche Site Project audience. You keep a low profile, which I appreciate. So if people want to get in touch with you, you can ask questions in the comments, or Graham's in the 5-Figure Niche Site Facebook group. So if you do join up as a student, he lurks in there a little bit. So thanks, Graham. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dougie. I'll talk to you soon.
I want to thank Graham for joining me and sharing his story. So hopefully in a few months, we'll get an update from Graham and we can do a follow-up interview. So if you have any questions for Graham, be sure to leave a comment and he'll check them out. Thanks.